There are moments in history when technology changes quietly over decades, and then suddenly arrives all at once. For many people, generative AI felt like that. Artificial intelligence had existed for decades, but most people had never directly interacted with generative AI until ChatGPT. Then on November 30th, 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public. And within 5 days, it had over 1 million users. That was faster than Netflix, Instagram, or Spotify. Within 2 months, it reached 100 million users. And the reason was actually simple. For the first time, ordinary people could simply interact conversationally with generative AI, not code it, not engineer it, not study it academically, just talk to it. And it talked back. That changed everything, because suddenly generative AI was no longer hidden behind apps, algorithms, and recommendation systems. It became conversational, accessible, personal. A student could use it, a teacher could use it, a parent could use it, a CEO could use it. A dean could use it at 11:30 at night, trying to draft an email he particularly didn't want to write. And speaking of that, hello everyone. My name is Sean Daly, and I am the Dean of Education and a Professor of Educational Technology at George Fox University. I've been studying AI for over a decade, particularly its educational implications for learning. And I can tell you, when ChatGPT arrived, it created a ripple unlike I have ever seen in my career. What actually happened? For many people, myself included, that first interaction with generative AI was out of this world. Not because the system was perfect. It absolutely was not. But because it crossed a psychological threshold. We asked a machine a question, and it responded like something that understood us. That moment matters historically. Previous technological revolutions often required specialized skill or access. Electricity required infrastructure, computers required training, program required technical knowledge. This one, though, begins with language. That matters because language is deeply human. For thousands of years, language has been tied to consciousness, reasoning, teaching, persuasion, storytelling, and identity itself. We expect machines to calculate. We do not expect machines to converse.
Why is that, Dr. Daly?
And that is part of why this moment unsettled people so quickly. The experience felt less like operating software and more like interacting with something responsive. Even when people intellectually understood that the system was statistical and computational, emotionally, many people reacted differently. Some immediately imagined utopian futures. Others immediately imagined catastrophic ones. And honestly, both reactions tell us something important. Because throughout history, transformative technologies tend to trigger exaggerated hopes and exaggerated fears simultaneously. The printing press did, television did, the internet did, and now generative AI is doing the same thing. But here's what's important. ChatGPT did not come from nowhere. So where did it come from? ChatGPT was the visible arrival of a much longer intellectual and technological project. For decades, researchers have been trying to answer a deceptively simple question. Can a machine imitate human intelligence? One of the foundational figures here was Alan Turing, the British mathematician who helped crack Nazi codes during World War II. In 1950, Turing published a famous paper asking, can machines think? And instead of trying to define consciousness philosophically, he proposed something more practical. If a human being could carry on a conversation with a machine and not reliably tell the difference, perhaps we would have to admit the machine was exhibiting something like intelligence. That idea became known as the Turing test. Now in the 1950s and 60s, early AI researchers became extraordinarily optimistic. One of them, Herbert Simon, who later won the Nobel Prize, predicted that machines would perform most forms of human work, and even claimed that computers would one day beat humans at chess. At that time, many people thought those predictions were ridiculous, but eventually, they happened. The challenge was that intelligence turned out to be much harder than researchers expected. Teaching a machine to perform calculations was relatively straightforward. Teaching a machine to navigate ambiguity, language, humor, context, and human communication proved far more difficult. And so AI went through repeated cycles of hype and disappointment, what researchers sometimes call AI winters, periods where funding dried up because the technology failed to meet expectations. But behind the scenes, progress continued. Computing power dramatically increased. The internet created unimaginable amounts of training data. And researchers developed what are known as neural networks and machine learning systems loosely inspired by patterns in the human brain. Eventually, breakthroughs allowed systems to recognize speech, identify images, translate languages, and generate increasingly sophisticated text. And then something changed again. The system stopped merely categorizing information and began generating it. That moment we now call generative AI. And in late 2022, ChatGPT brought that capability directly to the public in conversational form. And once that happened, the race began. Right now, several major companies dominate the generative AI landscape. This doesn't mean that they will always dominate the landscape. If you're old enough to remember the initial search engines before Google became the one that most of us used, then know that observers expect a narrowing of offerings. If you didn't know that there were originally search engines more popular than Google, anyway, the first LLM provider I'll reference is probably the best known as of this recording, OpenAI. OpenAI created ChatGPT and helped trigger the public explosion of generative AI. OpenAI is also deeply connected to Microsoft, which invested billions of dollars into the company and integrated AI into products like Word, Excel, Teams, Bing, and Copilot. Then there's Google. Google's been researching advanced AI for years before ChatGPT launched. In fact, many of the foundational breakthroughs behind modern AI came from Google researchers. But ChatGPT shocked the company because for the first time in decades, Google looked vulnerable in its stronghold in the marketplace, the search engine. As such, Google rapidly responded to ChatGPT by releasing its own LLM. This has had many names, but now you might know it as Gemini. Then there's Anthropic. Anthropic was founded by former OpenAI researchers and positioned itself around the ideas of AI safety and reliability. Their assistant is called Claude, and many professionals now use Claude for writing, analysis, strategic planning, and working through large documents. Next, you have Meta, Facebook's parent company. Meta has taken a somewhat different approach by open sourcing many of its AI models. In other words, they are trying to distribute AI more broadly instead of keeping it tightly controlled. And finally, Elon Musk's company xAI entered the race with Grok, integrated into X, which is formerly Twitter. Now, what's fascinating is that these companies are not merely competing over apps. They are competing for infrastructure, data, talent, influence, and eventually, habits. Because whichever generative AI assistant becomes your daily thinking partner gains enormous cultural power. So this is not just a tech story, it's an economic story, an educational story, a labor story, and potentially one of the defining stories of the next 20 years. We won't be able to cover the entirety of those stories, but I'd encourage you to explore this particular landscape and listen carefully as you learn more about AI in our educational series. Instead, we're going to take a moment and look at how we all engage in this story ourselves, from the comfort of our laptops or phones. Let's open a browser. I'm going to go to ChatGPT. At first, this might feel almost disappointingly simple. There's no dramatic movie interface, no glowing holograms, no science fiction command center. Where's Hal? Where's Mother? Where's Skynet? We are not entering the Matrix. We just see a prompt box and a blinking cursor. Then you type something like, help me write a professional email to my boss, or explain the French Revolution like I'm 12, or build me a workout plan to finally shake off those extra pounds. And within seconds, the system responds. For many people, the second prompt comes almost immediately, because once the system responds successfully one time, people instinctively begin testing it. So the interaction evolves quickly. People ask something simple, then people ask something practical. Then eventually they ask something more personal or intellectually complex. Help me outline a presentation, rewrite this so it sounds more edgy. Help me understand what I'm actually trying to say here. And somewhere in that progression, people often stop and think, wait a second, this is different. Because unlike a search engine, the system is not merely retrieving information. It's responding dynamically to you, your wording, your tone, your follow-up questions, your goals. And that responsiveness creates the illusion of collaboration. And that collaboration can feel genuinely useful. Now, here's the important thing to understand about what is going on here. The system isn't thinking the way that humans think. It doesn't possess consciousness. It doesn't possess wisdom or lived experience. But what it does possess is an extraordinary ability to predict language at massive scale. These systems are trained on enormous amounts of text from books, articles, websites, research, conversations, and code. Through that training, they become incredibly good at identifying patterns in language. So when you type a prompt, the model predicts what sequence of words is statistically likely to come next. But because the models are so sophisticated, the result feels astonishingly human. That's why many people have two reactions simultaneously. The first reaction is, this is incredible. The second reaction is, well, this is unsettling. Because the machine sounds fluent, and humans often confuse fluency with understanding. One researcher who speaks thoughtfully about this is Melanie Mitchell, who studies both AI capability and AI limitation. And one of her central observations is that these systems can appear extraordinarily intelligent while still lacking genuine human understanding. In other words, generative AI can produce convincing language without necessarily comprehending the world the way humans do. That distinction matters enormously because people tend to swing between two extremes, either dismissing these systems entirely or imagining them as all-knowing digital minds. The reality is more complicated than either of those because large language models can hallucinate facts, invent citations, reproduce bias, and sound extremely confident while being completely wrong. And yet, they can also dramatically increase productivity. They can help with brainstorming, summarizing meetings, drafting outlines, tutoring, translation, coding assistance, lesson planning, and organizing information. The key skill emerging right now is not simply using AI, it's learning discernment, knowing when to trust it, when to question it, when to refine it, and when to ignore it entirely. In some ways, interacting with a large language model like ChatGPT is less like using a calculator and more like managing an intern, a very fast intern, a remarkably well-read intern, but occasionally an intern who confidently makes things up. Now here's what I think matters. The interface changes the relationship between humans and knowledge. Historically, search engines helped us find information. Generative AI helps create and synthesize information. That's a major shift, and it raises difficult questions. Think about how many professions are built around early drafting, synthesis, summarization, formatting, or basic analysis. Those were traditionally the tasks that helped people learn a field. Generative AI now touches all of that. If AI can perform portions of entry-level work, how do people develop expertise? If students can instantly generate essays, how do we think about assessment? If knowledge becomes universally accessible, what becomes truly valuable? I suspect the answer increasingly becomes judgment. Whether you love generative AI or distrust it, it is already entering education, business, healthcare, government, and everyday life. So the real question before us now is, how do we use it wisely? Technologies this significant deserve both curiosity and humility. And I think there are two mistakes people make. One is panic, the other is blind enthusiasm. Both are shortcuts. Generative AI is neither magic nor meaningless. It is a powerful tool arriving faster than many of our institutions are prepared for, which means the people who matter most may be the people who understand its limits, its risks, its possibilities, and its effect on human beings. And for many of us, that journey begins with something remarkably simple: a blinking cursor and a question. So wherever you fall on generative AI, excited, skeptical, fascinated, overwhelmed, or somewhere in between, you are entering a moment of enormous change. Try things, ask questions, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and above all, remember that wisdom still matters more than speed. Good luck.